Hello, this is Abby Jr. It is September 25th, 2021, and today I'll be talking about the heart and the anatomy and physiology of it. So, starting off, I will talk about the layers. So, pictured here, you have the three layers of the heart. The outermost layer is the epicardium, which separates the pericardium from the heart itself, and next we have the myocardium. It's this thick middle layer here. So the myocardium, as the name suggests, is the muscle of the heart, and that's what stimulates the contraction and allows the heart to contract. And then the innermost part is called the endocardium, which acts as a barrier between the myocardium and the blood, and it provides friction when the blood contracts inside the heart. So those are the layers of the heart, and then next I will go through the four main parts of the heart, four main chambers of the heart. So we have the atria and the ventricles. So this is an anterior view, a frontal view. So on this side is actually the right side. So we have the right atrium here, and that goes into the right ventricle down here. I'm kind of circling it. And then back here, it's kind of pictured posteriorly. That is the left atrium, and then down here is the left ventricle. So those are the four chambers of the heart. So the blood flow, just for explanation's sake, goes from the right atrium into the right ventricle, and then it goes through the pulmonary circulation, back in through the left atrium, and then into the left ventricle, and then it pumps out the aorta to the rest of the body, to the systemic circulation. So those are the four chambers. And then in those chambers we have valves. So the valves are cusps that prevent backflow of blood. Yes. So pictured here, so what you can see is the atria. So that's the right atria, and that's the left atria. I made the ventricles disappear so that you can see the valves. So this one here is the tricuspid valve. It's called tricuspid because there's three cusps. So this prevents backflow of blood from the right ventricle back into the right atrium. And then conversely, on the other side, on the left side, we have the mitral valve, also called the bicuspid valve, also called the left atrioventricular valve. So this valve is very important. So it prevents backflow from the left ventricle back into the left atria. And then these two are the semilunar valves. So these ones, so this one that I'm covering right here, this is the pulmonary semilunar valve. So that goes from the right ventricle, which is not pictured down here. It goes from the right ventricle into the pulmonary circulation. So when the blood pressure or blood volume in the right ventricle becomes more than that's in the pulmonary artery, then it opens this valve, blood flows through that, and it stops once the blood flow is greater in there. So again, that prevents backflow from the pulmonary artery back into the right right ventricle. I am so sorry. And then the other one that I'm kind of hovering over right here in the middle, so that goes into the aorta. That's the aortic semilunar valve. And again, that comes from the left atrium that is not pictured here. And again, when the blood volume is higher in the left ventricle than it is in the aorta, that's when this opens. Blood flows through that into the systemic circulation to the rest of the body, and it prevents the backflow from the aorta back into the left ventricle. So those valves are very important. And then I will talk about the internal kind of anatomy aspects of the heart. So lit up in blue, I've lit up the three major, parts. So this one here in the middle is the interventricular septum. So as the name suggests, it separates the two ventricles. So this is the right ventricle, and this is the left ventricle. This is the interventricular septum. And then these, I'll hover over this one, down here, over here, and over here. These are the papillary muscles, so they're connected to the heart wall, and they control the opening and closing of, well, they assist in the opening and closing of the valves, and the papillary muscles are connected to the valves by these stringy things, stringy aspects, I guess you could say, is the chordae tendineae. So on both sides here, so it goes valves, chordae tendineae attached to the papillary muscles, and that's what pulls them open and closed. So that's the internal anatomy. And then we have the major arteries and veins coming out of the heart. So this is a strange view. So on the right side, this is the posterior, and then this is the anterior. So it's the front, back. So this is a kind of a side view. So this, everything lit up in blue is what I'm going to talk about. So this overarching part is the aortic arch. So the aortic arch, that's where blood pumps from the left ventricle through the aorta, the aortic arch into the systemic circulation and to the rest of the body. So A away is how I think of it, aorta. And then this part in the middle, it's kind of under, it goes like in between the aorta. This is the pulmonary artery. So the blood flow comes out of the right ventricle for this one, out the pulmonary artery into the pulmonary circulation. And then that blood returns to the heart through these 1, 2, 3, 4 pulmonary veins. So that's the oxygenated blood that comes back to the heart from the lungs. So those are the main, so we have the aorta, we have the pulmonary artery, and then we have the 4 pulmonary veins. So there's that. And last but not least, I will talk about a disease of the heart, a common disease of the heart, which is aortic stenosis. So aortic stenosis affects the aortic semilunar valve. So I'll pull that one up again. So that's this guy here, the aortic semilunar valve. So what happens is the valve itself calcifies, so it obstructs the valve, so it doesn't open fully. So when blood is originally pumped from the left ventricle through that into the aorta, it's nice and strong because it opens, but it doesn't open all the way. So that causes decreased blood flow to the rest of the body. And so kind of some physiological changes that result from that. A person suffering from aortic stenosis may experience dizziness, fatigue, and that's likely because of their low blood pressure or hypotension, and that's because of that decreased blood flow from the heart to the rest of the body. And they also have decreased heart rate, which is associated with that. So that is aortic stenosis, and that is my summary of the heart anatomy and physiology. Thank you.